Nathan Perez on deck. Rivera leading from first. Grace holding on the bag against him. The pitch. Swinging. There's a shot. Deep in the right center. Racing back to Lucci. Still going back in the dead valley. It goes right over his glove. He missed it. But Ruben Rivera missed second base. Now he's heading for third, and they're going to throw him out by plenty. But the corner third is boxed. Now he's heading home. The loose ball in the infield. And he's out by 5 feet at the plate. And that was the worst base running in the history of the game. The game should be over, and Ruben Rivera just did the worst base running you will ever see. Unbelievable. Ruben Rivera had gone around second base, and then for some reason seemed to assume that the ball was caught in the outfield. He got totally lost and confused out there and started to go back to second base as Grissom was pulling in at second. Ruben Rivera was the only man in the ballpark, apparently, who did not know what just happened.
It is our goal to cover all the bases when it comes to baseball broadcasting play-by-play, which is easier said than done. Welcome to Crafting the Call. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, voice of the Lansing Lugnuts.
And I'm Josh Suchon, the voice of the Albuquerque Isotopes. This week, we are talking about bad base running, and hopefully, Jesse, we can have some good broadcasting to document the bad base running.
Well, when you start with John Miller, we peaked, and that was the worst base running in the history of the game. So where do we go from here?
I guess the episode's over already.
It's such a great call. It's a legendary call by John, who was absolutely flabbergasted. You can tell, right? There are his eyes. He's looking at DeLucci. The ball has gone over DeLucci. So now he's picking up Rivera as the game-winning run. And there he's seeing Ruben just circling around second base.
Okay, so here's the thing about that call. It's an iconic call because at the very end, when John Miller says that is the worst base running of all time, and then he later says Ruben Rivera is the only person in the ballpark who didn't know what was happening. But even before that, it is textbook fabulous play-by-play announcing because he describes it right center field. He says that Rivera has missed second. Now he's going back to touch it. Now he says he's about to be out by third, out at third, even using the word, but they botched that play. Now he's going to try to score, and he's out by 5 feet, more like 2 feet, but whatever. Overall, like the entire call, not just the ending that gets the headline, the entire call from John Miller is fabulous, Jesse.
Yes, because he starts with the ball, and then everything becomes a focus on Ruben Rivera. And we're just tracing his misadventures, trying to get from second to third and maybe the plate, and he's just not going to get there. Yeah. So Josh, where do we go from here?
Well, hold on. There's one more point I want to make that too, because we've talked a lot, Jesse, about like where your eyes go as a broadcaster, right? The ball comes in, you're looking out to right center field. That's where your eyes are. Then you pick up the base runner. You may not see that he crossed second and forgot to, and then started to go back to first, but didn't realize that he needs to touch second again, and then starts going in circles. It's really easy to miss all of that and just say that Rivera, something happened to Rivera. Now he's going to third. But John picked up on all of those details, which is really hard to do when you're thinking of training your eyes for where to watch to make sure you call it accurately.
It's about having the wider scope. And I think that's what we are going to get more into as we watch some of these highlights, including some of our own, is the ball is elsewhere and trying to pick up the runners and understanding who is where and what is happening. Because on plays like the ones that you and I are going to see, we have expectations as to where a runner should be. You expect this ball is off the wall. Where should this runner be? This ball is into the alleyway. Where should this runner be? There's an expectation. He should be around third. He should be on his way third. And when a runner isn't where you expect them to be, how do you find the words to describe it?
Yeah, you can get really confused. You can maybe start looking down your scorebook. Wait a minute. Where are people? They're not where they're supposed to be. All right, so let's start in. Let's get into this episode. Let's look at a play from the 1980s involving a guy who was really fast and was a very good base runner, but he got confused too.
I'm glad they're playing.
That's the main thing. I was just going to say that. The biggest thing, we're just wondering, are they going to play?
There goes Mosby. Picked a good pitch to go on. Terrible throw. Mosby doesn't know where the throw is. He's going back to first base. Is he going to steal first? He steals first. Now he's going to steal second again. I've never seen it before. Mosby said, hey, McLaren, you got to help me.
All he's got to do is look at his third base coach, and he never did it. He thought it was a fly ball somewhere, and they were decoying him. Head down, he's stealing. It's not the hit and run. It was high, Ozzie. Now he doesn't look at his coach. And here he goes back to first. Now the throw by Kenny Williams goes by Walker, and it hits Mosby, and he's going to get up and go to second again. Where's Evan Costello when you need him?
Who says you can't steal first? He just proved you can.
All right, where do you want to begin with that one, Jesse?
The laughter. I love when there's laughter in the midst of a play, not after play, during the play, because we've got all the important things. Mosby doesn't know where it is a great explanation as to why he's running back to first base on a catcher's throw that overshot everybody and is out into center field. And now we're enjoying this the entire time, even as we pick up after the play concludes. Well, he's got to pick up his third base coach, and here's what's going on. The right tone was struck throughout.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think that a lot of times bad base running is the result of great defense. And even just the fact that Kenny Williams, future White Sox general manager, is the center fielder, and Ozzie Guillen, his future manager, is playing shortstop on that play. I think that smart defense sometimes sets up bad base running, but also bad defense also sets up bad base running, because just like as an announcer, you might think, wait a minute, why is that base runner not where I think he is? A base runner might think, why is the ball not where I think it is or where it should be? And that can lead to more just overall bad everywhere. I thought the camera did a really good job of showing Mosby looking at the third base coach like, come on, bro, help me out. But also like, look at him too.
Yeah, because they point out he is running with his head down.
Mm-hmm.
And so all he's trying to do is get to second base. Now he doesn't know where it is. Now he thinks he has to go back to first, which, can you imagine if Ozzie Guillen was called for obstructing a base runner trying to run in reverse?
I was wondering the same thing, because they did kind of bump into one another there.
The other thing, too, is you've got two broadcasters, both reacting to the play, but no one's really talking over one another. It's both of them enjoying it together, which I really appreciate, because it's so easy to step on your colleague's toes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And what do you think about the phrase, I've never seen that before in my life, which was used on that call?
Yeah, I thought that was beautiful. It was perfect. That adds the capper to it, is this was wild. And this is going to be a cliche. That's what we love about baseball, because at any day at the ballpark, you can see something you've never seen before. And in this case, it's literal.
And after the game, or even a few moments after that play, what do fans in the stands say? And what do they say to each other? Have you ever seen that before? I've never seen that before. Have you ever seen that before? And so that's a natural reaction. I've never seen that before.
He literally, the play-by-play is, right? He's at first. He steals second. He steals first. He steals second. We've got some errors mixed in there, but it's marvelous.
So here's the thing about stealing first. It's really easy to think that's never happened or that never could happen, but we just saw that it did happen. And then a few years ago, it happened again.
Segura goes. Pitch is outside, throw to second, not in time. Segura with a stolen base.
Yeah, with a nice throw by Castillo.
And Greg walks him. First and second with nobody out. Cubs are set up to turn a double play. And Segura takes off, and he is going to be picked off. And Braun able to get to second base, but Segura is out. Wait a minute. He tagged Segura. Segura left the bag. Segura's going to
first. You can't
base.
swap places.
No, he absolutely cannot.
Well, they were both at second base, and the guy that originally had second base is going to be saved. Now, Braun's out. Now, Segura's at first base.
He can keep going backwards, can he? I mean, Braun's eliminated from the play at that point.
Right.
And the old saying is you can't steal first.
You can't go backwards.
I think you just did.
The problem the Cubs had is they should have tagged Braun. He would have been out. Segura left the bag, tagged Segura right away. He would have been out. Check it out. Right here.
So
Tag. Now they're both out anyway right there.
Right. He put the
He
tag
put
on.
the tag on him the second time. He should be out because
Absolutely.
he did the right thing.
Segura's got to run here. And he goes. And he goes. And the throw to second. And he's out. So the first time he tried to steal second, he was safe. The second time, he's out. One of the craziest base running innings
of all time.
How do you go 1 for 2 in stealing second base in the same inning and the same trip around the bases?
I have a couple thoughts about this. First of all, Brian Anderson did something in that clip that I think a lot of broadcasters do, and I know that I'm guilty of myself of doing this, and I'm trying really, really hard to get out of the habit. And that is using the phrase, he's going to be. We hear at the beginning of that, Gene Segura is going to be picked off. We might say, he's going to catch this, or, something along that he's going to. And when that does not happen, then you get caught. And it's a habit that I'm really trying to break, Jesse. And again, it's something that Brian Anderson did in this moment. So I think that's one of my biggest takeaways and lessons from this play is instead of saying he's going to be picked off, he's in a rundown, he's in a pickle, something like that to properly set up the call so that you don't get caught.
One of my biggest takeaways from these last two has been with the Giants play with Ruben Rivera. That's the game-winning run. You can expect John Miller to be upset that he did not score. These last two, the situation is not quite so dire. However, consider the tone struck by Lloyd Moseby and by Gene Segura compared to the tone struck by Ruben Rivera, where John Miller's beside himself. But with each of these two, there's no flat out saying, this is terrible base running. This is awful. This is embarrassing. It is simply, this is ridiculous. Or can you believe this? And the conversation between our broadcasters here, just trying to figure out what in the world is happening. Base runners can't switch places on the bases, can they? The question I have as an aside for you is, didn't the first base coach at one point touch Segura, physically stop him?
Yes.
I don't know if he's actually able to do that, but we can look beyond that. It's when you see something that you have never seen before, how do you figure things out and how do you put words to it? And I think sometimes you need that partner next to you where the two of you can discuss it all out together.
Yeah, exactly. So that you can help remind each other. I would say even when it comes to two base runners are occupying the same base, I have seen this hundreds and hundreds of times in my life, Jesse. And I know deep in the back reaches of my brain that whoever had the base first is the one who gets it. And the trail runner is the one who's out. But in the heat of the moment of being live on radio or television, when that happens, my brain sometimes thinks, wait a minute, is it the one who already was it the one who was there first? Meaning he was already at the base, or is it the one who got to the right? And so I sometimes forget. And so in those moments, as a broadcaster, I don't want to sound dumb. And so I'm just going to describe, they tag both base runners. Let me wait to see who the umpire points at and those sort of things to make sure that I don't get the call wrong. And that's a case too, where we hear Brian Anderson, and I forget who was doing the color commentary for the Brewers broadcast there. They're kind of talking it out themselves.
I'm going to call out the umpire here. And this is just for the umpires in general. I need clarity.
Mm-hmm.
I need you to point at a runner and say, safe, point out. Make it clear for everybody, the players on the field, everyone in the dugout, the broadcasters, the fans, exactly what the call is on each player. We just had a situation in the Midwest League the other day where a base was stepped on, a player was tagged, and the umpire looked at all of this and made no call whatsoever. That's high A umpiring. He's learning. But if there is some tag that is made, if there's some play that the defense makes, you just need some kind of signal to be given. And so, let me know. Segura is fine. Ryan Braun is out.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you said that because I was actually just reading this book about Vin Scully. And one of the essays was by umpire Bruce Fleming. And Bruce and Vin talked one night, and Vin said, in a very diplomatic Vin Scully kind of way, you need to be more emphatic with your calls. You need to let all of us know in the ballpark what is happening so that I can describe it so that the fans know. the day before we recorded this episode, there was a play at first base. It was a fairly routine play, but the throw made the first baseman have to stretch for it. If you were really close to first base, then maybe you saw definitively that he kept his foot on the bag. But for most people in the ballpark, they didn't know. And the umpire just waited, and then he just kind of did this. No, give me a yes, he pointed, yes. Give me an emphatic out so that we all know.
I do want to tie in criticism of umpires to criticism of base running too, because in all the clips that we're watching, criticism is warranted. This is bad base running by Mosby and bad base running by Ruben Rivera and bad base running by Gene Segura. It's heads down play. In one case, we had a guy totally missed touching second base. We've got heads down play, lack of awareness. However, just like criticism of umpires, there's the idea of the magic word and what you can and can't say. It's not about impugning the individual. It's saying, in this moment, we are going to talk about this play and this decision-making. So John Miller is not excoriating Ruben Rivera, the human being. He's saying that was the worst base running I've seen. It's all about this decision-making and then trying to understand why and how things went wrong.
All right. You ready for our next clip?
Let's go.
This is one of my all-time favorite plays that appeared on This Week in Baseball over and over and over again.
Twib me.
That was our way back. He can't get it. Beecham went back and tag and stumbled. Now they got 2 men at third. They got to wait one around. Get them both. We'll get them both to the plate. There's one. There's two. Look at that play. I can't believe it. Look at that play.
So you've got Hall of Famer Ricky Henderson who hit that. You have Hall of Famer Carlton Fisk tagging out 2 runners. And I don't know who the Yankees third base coach was because they don't have names on the back. And that was from the 80s. But I loved it at a certain point when he sees the second runner going by him and he's just like.
Fellas, I'm calling it a day. I love those White Sox uniforms, by the way.
Pretty sure that was Don Drysdale. It sounded like Don Drysdale who did White Sox broadcasting back then. And so here's the other thing about bad base running. There's a very fine line between good base running and bad base running because, Jesse, how often have you and I called a game and there's a runner, say, at second base and he starts to go to third and then he realizes, no, this ball's going to be caught. I'm going to go back to second so that I can tag up. When you go, that was really smart base running, especially when someone is at first base and they tag up and they go to second, we think that was really smart base running. If it works, it's really smart base running. It is not very smart base running if it does not work, because then you have a situation like we just saw where the runner at first is almost running by the runner at second, and now they're both trying to get from second around third and home, and Carlton Fisk shows why he's a Hall of Famer.
How strong is Fisk's grip strength? That's a barehanded tag. I love this TV call. We get the immediate explanation for what's happening. Meacham went back and stumbled. Now they got 2 runners. And then the simplicity. It's a TV call. There's 1. There's 2. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it really is. And because I've seen that play so many times in my life, Jesse, whenever there is a game that I'm calling and I see 2 base runners both heading for third base, I immediately start to think about that play. I start to think about Carlton Fisk. I get really excited that maybe this is going to happen. And so then my eyes are locked on the third base coach at that point. What is he doing? And I want to say, 2 runners approaching third or something like that. And I'm going to say, Goldberg's going to wave both of them home or something, or sends one, holds the other. Here's the throw home, right? Because I just remember that play so vividly. And I'm always wanting to be ready on my game when that happens in the game I'm broadcasting.
Yeah. And it's happened before. It's going to happen again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so good for us to be able to say, here's how Don handled it, so we can learn from that for the future. That's great for you to have in your back pocket and something for me to put in my back pocket.
Don Drysdale, Hall of Fame pitcher, he was a fabulous broadcaster, and he worked at it, and he learned from Vince Scully, who was his mentor once he transitioned to become a broadcaster. He worked national games for ABC and all-star games, and he became an extremely good broadcaster. He was blessed with a great voice, which he worked on, and he just had a really calming presence when he was on the air.
Yeah, I think that he deserves his laurels. I wonder how much it's forgotten how good, great of a broadcaster he was.
Maybe we need to do an episode on Don Drysdale.
Seconded. I'd
Yeah.
be fully on board with that.
Okay, so we're going to get into our next clip, and this is probably one of the most famous base running mistakes in World Series history. But again, this will go back to an example of great defense that sets up bad base running.
Handled it into left center field. That ball is down and a bad. Well, it's off the wall. Lonnie Smith is held up at third, and he didn't do very good base running. That was terrible by Lonnie.
He didn't pick the ball up. He stopped when he rounded second base. He may have gone for the decoy around second. Lonnie Smith sees the ball in the gap, and look, he looked at Knobloch. You see Gagne and Knobloch combining for the decoy. Smith clearly could have scored on the ball had he been running all the way. As it was, the decoy of Knobloch and Gagne held Smith at third base. Knobloch, the one thing you don't do if you're the runner from first base, you don't look at the infielders. Never trust the infielders. Only trust where the ball was hit. Smith with a clear view of where that ball was hit, and he went for the decoy at second base, and that's why he didn't score. Look at Chuck Knobloch, the second baseman, and watch him go through the routine of throwing a ball that is not there. Now watch Gagne. There's Gagne right there. He acts like it's a play too. That stops Lonnie Smith. It confuses him. He stops at second base. He continues to third, but it's too late. So Lonnie could have scored. He didn't.
And the significance of that, Jesse, that's Game 7 of the 1991 World Series. The day before is when Kirby Puckett had the great catch. He had the home run, and we'll see you tomorrow night. That game was 0-0 going into 10 innings, the epic game between John Smoltz and Jack Morris. If Lonnie Smith scores, Braves just might win that game. That would have been the only run for the first 9 innings. And so that's probably the most famous decoy by a double play tandem in the history of baseball in terms of how it saved the World Series.
I'm going to put you on the spot. Name a more famous base running gaffe in a World Series game.
Babe Ruth getting thrown out at second base trying to steal, which literally ended the entire World Series.
Yeah, gave the Cardinals the win. That's a great one. I'm struggling to think of many more. This was famous. This play happens. Jack Buck gets caught up midway through. Maybe he intends to say bad hop. Something else happens. Now he's expecting Lonnie Smith to be around third, and Lonnie isn't. And Jack immediately launches into terrible base running. And then the baton is handed to Tim McCarver, who's going to take us through the rest. And Tim immediately picks it up, as does the producer, right? As does the director. And now we've got our camera shots. And we see the angles. And there's Tim with the telestrator. And this is his show to explain why exactly Lonnie Smith didn't score.
We've had a lot of episodes where we've really shown just how much Tim McCarver shined as an analyst. And I'm glad that we've done that because I know that I've learned so much about baseball from Tim McCarver. Maybe he didn't have it at the end, but in his prime, and this is when Tim McCarver was in his prime, he explained baseball in a way that few other analysts had ever done. And this, once again, the teamwork, Jesse, the high third base camera, which you may not always get in a regular season game, being able to show that angle and the director queuing it up and the replay operator queuing it up so that the telestrator can work and so that we can see that. That is fabulous teamwork by the production truck.
It makes me think of the power, too, of a color commentator.
Mm-hmm.
This is Tim McCarver framing what everyone is going to be talking about the next day and the next month. And now for years after this, unfortunately for poor Lonnie Smith, if you mention Lonnie's name, a baseball fan would say, oh, Game 7, 1991 World Series, he should have scored, but he got deked by Knobloch. Tim McCarver on this, and that framed everyone's takeaway from Game 7. It was, hey, Jack Morris was exceptional, and Lonnie Smith got deked. Otherwise, the Braves win.
We also had an episode that we recorded previously about stealing home, where Lonnie Smith tried to steal home in a different World Series and was thrown out, although the replay showed that he actually should have been called safe. And so Lonnie Smith and World Series base running, and I think that Lonnie Smith is a forgotten great player. I mean, he had some amazing years and was overall a really good base runner, but 2 critical mistakes in 2 different World Series games for him.
And to get back to the, I love your title, How to Sound Smart During Dumb Base Running. Well, why was Lloyd Moseby running back to first base? Well, because his head was down. He didn't pick it up. He got deked. He thinks that the ball is in the outfield because the batter hit it. Why is Gene Segura still heading back to first? Why is Ruben Rivera having to run around and around second base? I think that idea of the why is so important for the broadcaster to land on, even if it takes you until after the play to figure it out. Like Jack Buck, in the thick of this play, has no clue why Lonnie is only at third base. And that's okay, because we can go back and we can say, let's figure out why he didn't score.
So yesterday in the game that I broadcast, there was a college student who was shadowing both myself and the Las Vegas Aviators announcers. And so he went back and forth. And so I'm talking to him between innings. And he asked me about biggest pieces of advice. And one of the things that I told him was that, look, in the course of a baseball game, there's going to be 250 to 300 pitches that are thrown. Maybe in a Pacific Coast League, 400 pitches that are thrown. And I said, I know it gets really exhausting to say, here's the pitch, or here's the 2-1, or the 2-1 pitch. But when you are at a place where you are ready for the pitch, then whatever craziness happens, you are much more prepared to call it. Yes. And so if you can pick your words wisely between pitches and be ready when it comes, even the most simple thing, like saying, there goes Moseby. Now you've already set the words in motion for how to call it. We know that Moseby is running. The pitch, here's the throw. It's into center field. Now you're on top of it. You're not still trying to fumble through the words of whatever you were talking about before. And now you're trying to get caught up with Moseby. And now you don't really have time to take a breath. And now this is happening to your voice instead of being able to give yourself those little quick pauses, those beats, so that your brain has time to match the words coming out of your mouth.
That's the essence of being a broadcaster.
There's one more where it's another example of great defense, but also a critical mistake by a base runner.
Ooh.
Stolen base the entire season, so you're not going to run, you're not going to hit and run, you got to wait for a gapper.
That is fair down the right field line. Giambi on his way to third, and they're going to wave him around. The throw, this is a cutoff man, shoved to the plate, out of the plate. Derek Jeter with one of the most unbelievable plays you will ever see by a shortstop. Both cutoff men were missed. Jeter coming down the line, fielded with his bare hand, a shovel to Posada, and Giambi is out. What an unbelievable play by Jeter.
2 things on behalf of all Oakland A's fans. Number 1, Jeremy Giambi, slide. Number 2, he missed the tag. He was safe.
I think.
Go ahead, Jesse.
You could try to convince me. I've always thought that he looked out to me. I think Tom Brenneman crushes this, right?
Yes, he does.
Tom Brenneman is all over this.
And so Steve Lyons is the analyst who we hear at the beginning. And Steve does a good job of finishing just in enough time so that Tom can do the play-by-play. And Brenneman nails it with his big voice. He says that Giambi's on his way to third. He says that they've missed the cutoff man. He says the backhanded flip that he says, and then he punctuates the call with one of the most amazing plays you'll ever see by a shortstop. I think that Tom Brenneman's description and call of this play is just like, it's just an A.
With instant replays, I'm going to break down the way that they're analyzed and used into 2 different categories. There's one where the broadcaster needs to see the replay to understand what happened. And then there's the other where the broadcaster says, on this replay you're about to see, look at this. And Tom Brenneman, before that replay is shown, is already basically saying, look at Derek Jeter.
I was at that game. I was covering that game for the Oakland Tribune. I wrote a sidebar about that exact play. And I remember talking to players, everyone who was involved, the throw by Spencer, where Derek Jeter was, Jorge Posada talking to everybody and having the Yankees explain, yeah, that's where Jeter was supposed to be. And I'm going like, what do you mean that's where he was supposed to be? But lining up where the two cutoff men are on that play. And again, this is a case of, it's not necessarily bad base running, but it's just more just a case like you have to slide, right? Like back then you could level the catcher. And so many times bad base running is the result of just great defensive play.
That is bad base running. Have you seen a circumstance where you expected a runner to slide and they didn't slide? Whenever I do, it just leaves me slack-jawed. I'm going, come on. And at any base, there have been circumstances where a slide is in order, they didn't slide, and you're going, okay. So, as you look at the results of this play, do you regret your choices?
Anytime that somebody scores standing up at home and it's a close play, my mind immediately goes back to this play, Jesse.
Yeah.
Giambi not sliding, of a close play. In my mind, I start to look for, okay, where was the on-deck hitter? Did the on-deck hitter hustle over in order to tell his teammate, right, get down or, stand up or whatever? Or was the base runner looking over his shoulder, as he's running down third, is he looking over his shoulder to see where the play is? And anytime it's close, and yeah, I kind of get tongue-tied because my brain is going, here's a close play. And I'm thinking what's about to come out of my mouth is slides. But instead I'm saying he goes in standing and he's safe, and it's just awkward call.
Oh, okay. So let's talk about this, because just like you said with Brian Anderson, you should not say gonna, because you are making an assumption and you need to stay more in the moment. You need to react what is happening and what happened rather than trying to assume what's going to happen. So then in this point, it becomes, here's the play at the plate, and then you can say he is safe, he is out.
I think a good phrase that you can just use under any circumstances is, here's the.
Yes.
Here's the slide, or here's the tag, here's the play, right? Whenever you can say, here's the, then that kind of sets you up to put you in a position to be able to go whatever's coming next.
I don't think I've ever used this. I've enjoyed when I've heard a broadcaster shout, play at the plate, and then go from there. I'm very much someone who, it's become natural for me now to say, he is out at the plate or safe, and whatever it might be, to drag out that is waiting on the call.
Yeah.
Which, where that sets me up wrong is, I don't immediately say safe if the throw is terrible, right, or if the throw is cut, because there are some times where fly ball, right field, he's gone back to third to tag, makes the catch, he breaks for home, here's the throw, the throw is cut, he's safe.
But I think that here comes Giambi, here's the throw, here comes Giambi, I think that those things can kind of help you.
Yes.
At the same time, it's also just natural that you don't want to say the same things every single night, 150 times a year. You want to look for different ways of saying the same thing.
Well, and Tom Brenneman uses the word shovel, which is the perfect verb for this moment. So he's clearly right on it. He's got it figured out. There is no assuming going on. He's right on this play. Giambi for the plate, throw overshoots the cutoff, the shovel, the tag, and here we go. So it's another reason why the voice gets big. He immediately launches into how great it was by Jeter. But as things happen, he is on them. And that is marvelous for a broadcaster.
All right. So now we're going to put ourselves on the spot. We have a clip of mine, a clip of yours, and a clip of your broadcast partner, Adam. Where are we going first, Jesse?
I think that let's start with me, because this is a play where a runner should have slid and didn't. So I think that there's a natural transition to be had here. Like, a slide was in order. He did not slide.
All right, let's watch.
Lansing down 6-3, bases loaded in the 8th inning. 2 outs. First pitch. Ground ball shot to the right side, base hit right field. In comes Wright. Halters on his heels. A throw in his cut. A throw into third base and safe the call. Meanwhile, Brobas keeps running. He's in a rundown between third and home. Catcher Hunter delivers it to the third baseman Collier. Runs him toward the plate and tags out Brobas. And the side retired. Brobas was safe into third base, but he overran the bag and he ran the Lugnuts out of the inning.
That's a key moment in the game. I love how you set it up, right? Bases loaded. We're in the 8th inning. This is the score. So you nailed that. And he didn't slide. Self-critique. When you look back on that call, what did you like? What would you do differently?
I have a weakness that I'm working on right now, which is the brain races so fast that I can trip over words. The first thing that I think about is I need to make sure that I get that batter's name out there as I'm doing this whole reset at the very start. I need to let you know who the hitter is. That's where I'd start. Where do you want to go to from here? Because as we critique, there are all sorts of different layers from it. So I watch and I go, oh, name the batter, for crying out loud.
Well, so here's the thing. You said the catcher and then his name. You said the third baseman and his name. And I think it becomes a really interesting point when you're broadcasting minor league baseball or college baseball, where everybody doesn't just have everyone's names memorized, right? If you're doing Major League Baseball, you can just say Derek Jeter. Everybody knows that Derek Jeter is the shortstop, okay? When you're describing minor league baseball, like Jesse and I do, or college baseball, not everyone's going to know these names. They're not household names. And so I spent a lot of time thinking, Jesse, about it sounds really wordy to say, the catcher Perez to the third baseman Shunk, different things like that. But it helps the audience understand it a whole lot more. And so then sometimes, is it better to just say the catcher's got it now? Well, that sounds really lazy. It sounds like I don't know the name, but it actually makes it easier for the audience to understand what's going on. So there's these competing forces. And then sometimes I just think, maybe I just didn't say he's in a rundown and now he's tagged out, because I just think that it becomes a tricky of what makes you sound better as a broadcaster, but also what is easier for the audience to understand, which ultimately should be the point.
I liked most the way that I summed it up, that he overruns third and runs them out of the inning. That quick summation of here's what happened. It's a 2-run single. And then in a base loaded spot, runner tries to go first and third and doesn't slide. And suddenly he's around third base. And why is he running for home? You got me.
All right. What's next?
Let's look at you now.
All right, so this is a play that happened not too long ago from the time that Jesse and I recorded this episode.
0-1 pitch. Runner goes. It's popped up in the air to shallow right. Long run for Fabian, who got a late jump. He's sprinting in near the line. It's a fair ball. Carrera started to go back to first. Now he gets thrown out. No, they dropped the ball at second, but he doesn't realize it. He was safe. Now he's in a rundown. Then they threw it away. Carreras is going to try to get to third base, and he will. A comedy of errors of throwing and catching and running and stopping and starting. And ultimately it ends with Carreras at third, Bouchard at second. Wow. Bouchard hit a blooper. Carreras had already slid into second, went sprinting back to first. Ball was just barely fair. The throw from Fabian would have had him, but it was dropped. Julio didn't realize it. I don't know if he was out of the baseline. And then they threw it over the third baseman's head. And he gets to third base. Now, the manager for Round Rock, Doug Davis, while we were showing the replay for TV, has been talking to the third base umpire, it's Aaron Higgins. And it could be that the discussion is about whether or not Julio went out of the baseline, because he was on the grass thinking that he was out. But I think the question becomes, was he out of the baseline to avoid being tagged, or was he just out of the baseline? That is possible that that's what this discussion is about.
All right, I'm going to end it right there. Spoiler alert, he was safe. He was not out of the baseline. There was actually an umpire's supervisor who happened to be in town, so I was able to run down the hallway between innings and ask specifically about that rule. And because Julio Carreras was not trying to avoid a tag. He can actually create his own baseline. And then he got back into the baseline as the play continued on. And so he was not out for going out of the baseline on that play.
It's such a beautiful turn of phrase. He created his own baseline. What were your thoughts on it when you look back on it?
Oh, man. So there's so much that happens immediately. My first thought is I just said runner goes instead of Carreras is running. So that's my first thought. My second thought is I got caught and I said he's going to be thrown out. He's going to be. And again, that's the same thing that we talked about with Brian Anderson at the beginning of the episode. And that's such an easy thing to do because you see where the throw is. You see the distance that the runner still has to get to the bag. And the brain just says he's going to be thrown out. And that's what came out of my mouth. But it was dropped. I thought that I recovered well enough on that. And I said, but it was dropped. But now Julio doesn't see it. I maybe could have said a little bit more. He's going back to second. Now he's going back to third. There's a lot of things that happen on the play. And, overall, I think, all things considered, I give myself a B on that call because of all the different things that were going on. Put it this way, I'm just glad I did not butcher the call on that one.
I go to the way that you ended it because you ended it really well. There's one addition I'd like you to make to the ending, especially as you're looking at the replay. A word that I don't think that you ever dropped in there is that's a force play at second base. There doesn't need to be a tag. There's a force in order. And yet, but that's neither here nor there. When it shows the replay and anytime that it shows Carreras up close, he looks exhausted. So this is the glorious thing I think about the Lloyd Moseby call is the announcer's merriment is paralleled with the big smile on Lloyd's face the whole way. And I think that at the conclusion of this play, if you would have said something like, Carreras is exhausted and so am I.
I will use that next time. He basically had an inside the park home run because he ran from first to second, back to first, back to second, toward the pitcher's mound, toward third, back to second, back to third. Yeah, that was like an inside the park home run to go 180 feet.
Which that also is a beautiful way to sum all of this up. And that's where I come back to is in the moment, as you said, and as you said to the young broadcaster, just be on top of it. Just be in front of the play and set yourself up for success in describing what you see. No assumptions, just here's what's actually happening. And now, afterward, we can get into the fun of it. We can get into the turn of phrases. We can share how everyone is feeling out there on the field. Look, he created his own baseline. Can you blame him?
I think the stakes of the moment can really impact and should impact how you finish off the play, right? We heard John Miller lose his mind because that would have won the game. In the case of Lloyd Moseby, it was not going to decide the game. Even the Gene Segura, these are plays that happen in the middle of the game. And the clip that we just saw where I'm doing play-by-play, that's the first inning, right? And so if I start to critique myself a little bit more, I might have wanted to smile a little bit more through of just how much running that Carreras did on that play because it is the first inning, right? Man, I really like Carreras is exhausted and so am I. I really need to say that. That's so good.
With my call, as you noted, that's the 8th inning. On the road, down by 3, you score 2 runs, and that is your tying run that is getting tagged out between third and home on a single. So what are we doing here? The last call I wanted us to take a look at just happened last night, if we were to say when we were recording this as we go. Now, it's not exactly going to be evergreen because this gets posted, and who knows when you're actually watching us talk about bad base running. But this is my broadcast partner, Adam Jaxa, and this illustrates, not to throw Adam under the bus, when you assume where a runner should be and where the runner actually is. And so I wanted to bring up, what do we do this time? This is going to be the opposite of the Carlton Fisk play, if you know what I mean.
1-2 pitch. Lifted out to right field, hit well. Back goes Nankiel towards the track, towards the wall, reaches up, and that ball is off the top of the wall in play. It's picked up by Lasco and fired in. 1 run comes in. They had to wait and see. And now they've got a rundown. And out at the plate is Balcazar. Okay, so he didn't come in to score. And now we've got a discussion from the manager, Vince Harrison Jr., that's coming over to talk with home plate umpire Shea Graham, and then now go out to talk with Jonathan Rector. They think that's a home run.
Okay. Now, in this case, it could go either way. Did the ball go off the railing? But Adam makes an assumption here. We've got a runner that he is expecting to score, and this could potentially be a 2-run double. However, Leo Balcazar, the 20-year-old lead base runner, looks at his third base coach, who is holding up the stop sign to the runner behind him, and he thinks that stop sign is meant for him. So now we've got two guys who are stopping and going to third. And Adam, who has expected the lead runner to score, he is now looking at a rundown and trying to figure out, well, who's this runner? I've got a runner scoring. So this comes back to the broadcasting, and this comes back to John Miller and Ruben Rivera and trying to keep that wide scope. Here's the ball, and now where are the runners?
And I think once again, this goes back to where your eyes go and how fast your eyes can scan the entire field for a number of things, how fast your eyes can see things that you may not mention immediately, right? And so I'm thinking about this play on my own, and I'm thinking, okay, fly ball to right field. I'm describing the right fielder going back for it. I see that it's off the top of the wall. Then where are my eyes going to go next? Where are the base runners? So I want to pick them up, right? There's runners at first and second when this play began, right?
Yes.
Okay, so in my mind, I'm probably thinking, okay, that runner from second is going to score, but then I want to see where are those base runners. I'm picking up the third base coach. That's where it's really easy for me. If the right fielder fell down, did he pick it up? Did the center fielder pick it up? Did he bobble it? That's where that's something that I might miss. I may not, maybe the runner at second went back to tag. That's something I would have missed if I'm watching the right fielder. So basically having your head as a bobblehead where you're basically able, how many different things can I look at all at the same time while describing this play calmly, accurately? And also this also goes back to, Jesse, what we talk about a lot. Are you looking down at your scorebook to see the name of the right fielder? Are you looking down at your scorebook to remind yourself of who that base runner was? Or can you just look out to the field, see it all, describe it all, basically without a cheat sheet?
Precisely. There's the classic I just mentioned, fly ball to the outfielder with a runner on third going back to tag. Well, you have to both see that runner and see the outfielder. You've got to see all of this. So with run scoring, you have to somehow widen your scope just so you can see who's crossing the plate, how many runs are coming in, and where everybody is. But yes, that look down, and now you have lost who might be where.
You just said something that happened in a game recently as well. Fly ball to medium deep right field, maybe shallow right. Guy at third base goes back to third, and we've seen this hundreds of times in our life where they go to tag, but they're really not going to try to score because of how shallow it is, right? Maybe they take a couple of steps down the line, maybe a few more. And it was a play where it's actually just keeps going and keeps going. It doesn't stop. It ends up getting thrown out. And I don't remember my exact call, but it was something, he goes back, he's tagging, he's running. And I'm saying that because in my mind, I'm ready to say he's tagging and now he stops. But it was something like he's tagging, he's going, he's still going. And here comes the throw and he's out at home. And that's, again, where it's just so easy to just think about what you're going to say. I know what's going to happen next. And so I'm going to say these words, and it's going to lead to these words and these words and these words. Oh, wait, something different happened. How do I recover on the fly?
There's the idea that as a young broadcaster, you've got your assumptions, and that the more you get experience, the more you understand, okay, I'm going to call the moment. But I also think that the more baseball that you see, the more you go, all right, I've seen enough baseball. I know what's going to happen here.
Yeah, exactly. And those are the pratfalls. And that's where bad base running can lead to bad broadcasting if you're not careful, or if you don't, quickly make an adjustment for yourself.
Let me tell you a quick story. This is not bad base running. So no video highlight to watch with this, or low light for that matter. There was a runner at third base, and a fly ball was hit to right field, medium depth, and the runner went back to bluff a tag. And the right fielder makes the catch, and the runner bluffs the tag, and the right fielder bluffs a throw. So the runner takes more steps toward home, and the right fielder bluffs a throw, and the runner took a couple of more steps toward home, and the right fielder's really bluffing now, and the runner scored. So the right fielder still, I'm good. Don't make me. I've never seen that before in my life, and I saw that this year.
It also makes me think, though, about just this becomes more of like a baseball lesson than a broadcasting lesson, is keep running. Even in that last call with Adam doing play-by-play, get into a rundown. Do something. Don't just give up. You're halfway down to third. Do something here. Do your Javi Baez impersonation to try to do something that might lead to them making an error.
Yeah. All right, as we wrap things up, that's a really great place to get to. And this is our enjoyment, right? Is those different realizations that we have. And it's not all broadcaster realizations. It's also with baseball. I do feel the more baseball I watch, the more broadcasting I talk, I do feel the smarter I get when it comes to the national pastime.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I love looking back at these old calls that we do in order to see how it was described at the time, how TV directors, replay operators bring it all together. For those of us who are doing a hybrid, when we do have the chance to look at a replay or when we don't, and just how we are in the moment. And ultimately it comes down, I hate to keep repeating myself, but being prepared as the pitch comes. Don't look down and find the right words that you can use that can allow you to go either direction as the play unfolds.
Don't be Lloyd Mosby. Keep your head up.
Don't be Ruben Rivera.
For a number of different reasons.
Yes. All right, Jesse, I enjoyed this episode as I do all of them. And a quick reminder to people listening, watching on YouTube, send us a recommendation for a play, a type of call that you want to see us break down. Leave us a comment, press that subscribe button down at the bottom, share it with your friends, your other baseball friends, your other baseball broadcasters, any broadcasters really. We'd love to hear from you as we continue to make Crafting the Call continue on and with all the great momentum that it has right now.
Yeah. And for everyone who's waiting to hear if we would say this word during this episode, TOOTBLAN. For Josh Suchon, voice of the Albuquerque Isotopes, I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler with the Lansing Lugnuts, and this has been Crafting the Call.